What you need to know. The Zimbabwe Amendment Bill No.2 is going through public hearings as from today. Now, the bill proposes a total of 27 amendments to the Constitution. Now, among other changes, these amendments would allow the President to appoint at least 2 more ministers from outside Parliament, expand Parliament's women's quota by another 2 terms, and reserve 10 extra seats in the National Assembly for youth. Now, it also looks into the appointment of judges and who should appoint them. Now, the Constitution of Zimbabwe Amendment No.2 bill was published in the Gazette on the 31st of December 2019 and again on the 17th of January 2020. Now, joining me on the line is Gladys Changachirere from the Institute for Young Women Development.
We have been observing the public hearings in different places. I was in Mount Darwin. I had colleagues in Marondera on Tuesday, colleagues in Gwanda, in Berengwa, in Plumtree, and today we also have others who are in Rusape and other places. And what seems to be obtaining really is that we have seen that women and young people in general have been attending these public hearings. And most of their sentiments around the amendments, all the 27 amendments, is that these are very problematic and unconstitutional in their own nature because they are actually diverting from what has been put in our 2013 Constitution. So this leads to an overwhelming, response of rejection of the Amendment Bill No.2. For the women and youth who have been participating, we've also been asking them around why they're rejecting the bill in totality, despite the fact that it also provides for women and youth quotas. And the sentiment really is that the quotas that are being provided by the amendment bill are actually limiting women and youth rights and responsibilities because it's being selective, only wanting youth and women to be in parliament and not in other positions of leadership, including at local government.
Okay.
And secondly, it's also being considered as limiting because it's only providing for 60 additional seats for women and 10 additional seats for youth. And this is being viewed as problematic because the Constitution actually provides for 50-50 for women's representation and proportional representation for youth. So in terms of numbers, numerically, the amendment bill is trying to actually limit the number of young people and women who can actually get into parliament. And then secondly, the other problem is that it now wants to make women and youth a burden to the fiscus by creating additional non-constituent seats. And yet the Constitution of 2013 actually provides for mainstream participation and representation of women and youth across all levels of governance. So what we have seen obtaining in all the venues that I've mentioned earlier on is an overwhelming response of actually rejecting Constitutional Amendment Bill No.2. The other thing that I've observed is that most of the women and youth who are participating are people that have been invited by civil society organizations to participate in these hearings. And very few people have been coming, indicating that the state has not done its major role of ensuring that this process is really a public process and they've reached out to people so that they actually come and participate in numbers. So they've actually shortchanged people. I think also because of COVID-19 regulations, a lot of people have not been able to move around. And secondly, there's been very minimal time as well for citizens in general to prepare. So I think this idea of rejection is actually supported, by the few numbers of people who have participated to say that this bill should not go through because the public, in that sense, has not really effectively participated. And secondly, that the amendment actually is diverting from the commitment and the spirit of constitutionalism that we have in the 2013 Constitution.
For the implementation of the 2013 Constitution, which gives women and young people equal opportunities to participate in decision-making processes. The organization's program coordinator, Ms. Sandra Zenda, who attended the parliamentary public hearings on Constitutional Amendment Bill No.2 in Mount Darwin, Constitution of 2013, it
already has provisions which allow for youth representation and also even other marginalized groups like people living with disability. And it also has provisions for women representation, 50-50 actually, it has provisions for gender equality. Now the Constitutional Amendment Bill is talking about quotas. So the quotas were good, like about 5 years back, as an entry point for allowing women to be represented or to sit within the national parliament. But for now, what we're saying is it doesn't speak of progress on our part. As yet, women we have gone into parliament under those 60 quota seats. They've been called Bakosi MPs. That's kind of like an insult. So we are saying we want women to be into parliament, but not kind of like as a bonus. We want them to stand in their own right.